We on, we hold up this vision, living through the breath we're giving. Big hugs, everyone, and welcome to Pass the Mic. Today, I have the pleasure of visiting with a man that when you have three names in your name, you know you bad. You know you the one. America, I want you to meet this amazing man, this talented man, Micheal Paul Smith. Say hello to the world, Micheal.
Hello, everyone. How you doing? It's so good to be here. Thank you, Gino.
I know, ladies. That voice is a killer from Manila. It's fantastic. I've always loved your voice.
No, my father had a really great speaking voice. He would, so all he would say is just say your name, and it was so deep and stuff. You'd be like, "Uh-oh, I'm in trouble now."
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay, I know you're saying, Gino, the song. What's the song for today?
Today's I was drawn in by a song by Curtis Mayfield.
Okay.
And it's called "People Get Ready." There's a train a coming.
People get ready. There's a train a coming.
You don't need no baggage. You just get on board.
All you need is faith
to hear the diesel humming. You don't need no ticket. You just thank the Lord. You don't need no ticket. You just thank the Lord. You don't need no ticket. You just thank the Lord. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
As a young kid, I was mentored by a teacher who was very, and she exposed me to opera pretty early on, and I started studying with her, and at the time, I was very excited about it. So I did it for about 25 years. And traveled all over. We go to Europe pretty regularly, and the Far East, Japan, China, and the U.S. And and then one day I just decided, you know what, this is not really it. This is cool,
more.
but it's you gotta have a level of passion that I realized that I didn't have. I had the voice, but I didn't have a passion for opera, and so I began now to embark on music that really I feel passionate about, and projects. Right now I'm working on doing a tribute to an iconic figure, African-American gentleman who was very big in the early 30s and 40s and 50s. And so I'm researching his life and going to do a one-man musical tribute to him.
Oh, how beautiful.
And I've had success with my tribute to Paul Robeson.
I was going to ask you. I saw some pictures, a couple of days ago. I was looking through some stuff, and I was working with a song, Every Time I Feel the Spirit, which I didn't know. My background is Catholic, so I didn't know about the song.
Yeah.
And there was a picture of Paul Robeson and a track of him doing it.
Right.
And you popped into my mind instantly.
Yeah.
Wow. What was that like doing Paul Robeson?
Yeah. How I came about to discover who he was. He was, I went to UCLA as a history major and a minor in Black history, African American history at the time. And I never heard of Paul Robeson in any of my classes, any of my studies. It wasn't until I was touring in Japan with this group I was singing with, and older Japanese gentleman and probably his grandson. We were having a reception afterwards, and they I was seeing, and I could see them just making a beeline for me. It was really fun. And
like,
so,
we're coming to you.
Yeah, they're coming. Excuse me, sir. We enjoyed your performance. But my grandfather said that you remind him so much of Paul Robeson.
Wow.
And that
Because he was a big man too.
Yeah.
Michael, you're very tall. How tall are you?
6'1".
Yeah, he was
6'1".
from, yeah.
Paul was rumored to be about 6'2 to 6'3", somewhere around there. But this was back in 1920, so
wow,
that was equivalent to like a Kobe Bryant or somebody
oh,
today.
Absolutely.
So that was about
yeah,
6'7".
He towered over people.
He towered over people. And so when he said that, he said, "We're so sorry because we didn't support him more." And I'm like, and they're saying this, and I'm like, well, I'm not sure if this is a compliment or I didn't even know, because I didn't know who Paul was.
Right.
And so I kind of talked to a few people, and they said, "Oh yeah, he's the guy that sang that old Red River song, the old man." And then a funny thing again, Gina, we were touring, but Italy, so we go to Italy every other year for about I did that for about 10 years, and so same scenario. I can't believe this, older Italian man with probably his grandson, they're making a beeline right to me.
Oh my!
Again, and so they, the son says, "Scusi, signore." I can my Italian's a little better. My Japanese. "Scusi, signore." And he said, began to say, my father loved your voice. He said you remind him of Paul Robeson.
Oh my!
Again,
goodness.
And so immediately I thought, I got to find out who this guy Paul Robeson is. And so I began researching on him, and I was like, oh my goodness. This brother went through, his story is amazing.
Yes.
So I'm doing it here in Carlsbad on October the 12th.
Oh, how beautiful.
City of Carlsbad.
Beautiful.
And I have a great musician, it's me and piano, and I researched all of his songs.
Yes.
So from the various times, eras when he was in college, to when he was
you went way back.
Yeah, so when he was in college, he sang in the Glee Club, and then he went to Rutgers.
Okay.
He was the first black All-American football player.
Really?
Two-time All-American football player. He sang in over 18 languages. So he was quite an iconic figure. They actually, when he, during the McCarthy era, they eliminated his name from all public records. So they removed his name from the All-American list. He was a valedictorian at Rutgers University.
Really?
They removed his name from that. You couldn't find any trace of Paul Robeson. They devastated his name and his career so thoroughly, and he took the bullet for African Americans. But he traveled the world extensively, and so like when I was in Japan, he had toured Japan. He'd been to Europe. He had gone to China. Russia embraced him like no one else, and that's really where he got into trouble, because Russia was the leading country in film back then. There was a gentleman named Eisenstein, and he was the leading director in film in the world.
Wow.
And he invited Paul to come out because Paul was doing, he was statuesque, he was 6'3", he was just
a beautiful specimen of a man.
Absolutely.
And especially a man of color.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And he had this voice that makes James Earl sound like Mike Tyson. I mean, his voice is like, it just rolled and it rolled. And so they embraced him. He was invited to Russia, and they treated him like royalty. And this was before the Cold War. And when they came at people saying, "Are you communists?" and all of that, that was a big scare.
Yes.
Lena Horne was also taken under. There were a lot of people that left the country, artists who were being targeted by the McCarthy era. And Paul refused, being a lawyer, he had a law degree from Columbia, refused to, this is my right to be whatever, to whatever my political, I don't need to reveal that to anyone.
Exactly.
And so they came at him, and he was one of the highest paid concert artists in the world. There was a guy named Siapin who was Italian bass, and him and Paul was like neck and neck all the time. Who was making the most money concertizing? And there was a guy named Roland Hayes who was number 3, brother tenor, who was in Europe singing all over the world. Roland Hayes. And so, but anyway, Paul, I was like, oh my God, someone needs to do something about this man.
I can feel your passion. What a beautiful gift, because so many of us being Americans, people of color, not people of color, just people not knowing a lot about our history for yourself. I mean, I'm sure when you were growing up, you're at Motown, and you were spinning and doing all the things.
Yeah.
What pulled you for opera?
I come from a large family, and there were 9 kids. I have 3 older brothers, two older sisters. I'm number 6. And they listened to a lot of R&B, and KGFJ was big at the time. And so at a young age, they were teenagers, and I'm like 2 and 3 running around.
Okay.
And they're listening to, what teenagers do. They listen to music all day, all night. And so I knew all these songs because I heard them as a toddler growing up. And so what happened is my father had a friend that actually introduced him into metaphysics. Her name is Joyce Carl. And Joyce Carl never had any children. She was a Caucasian lady of German descent, a musician, singer who had a career early. And my father was a good friend of hers, and he's mentioned her. He said, Michael's always singing. He's in the shower, he sings. I'm like 14 years old or something. He sings in the shower. I don't think I could sing very well. I just love to sing. And she said, bring him to me. I want to work with him. And she became my mother figure. My father basically gave me to her. And, he had 9 kids. He said, well, you take Michael. You take Michael.
I got plenty.
Yeah, I got plenty. You just take Michael, and I'll make sure he shows up. And we had a marvelous relationship. She would take me to concerts at the Hollywood Bowl, the Greek Theater, the Music Center, to plays. Now, the thing that was interesting, what she did was to take me backstage after the performance.
That had to be a lot of fun.
And that was very mind-blowing. And she would introduce me as a great performer. This is Michael. He's a great performer as well. And people were like, well, here I am, 6 foot, maybe 5'11", all of 140 pounds, nothing but a nose and arms. And Joyce, who was, she was maybe 4'11".
Oh, so she
and,
looked like a little.
Can you imagine the visual?
Yeah.
And so, but she nurtured me. She said, you're going to college. And I said, okay. Well, I was a big basketball player. I wanted to go play college basketball. And I did for 2 years at Pasadena City College. And she said, you're going to a 4-year university. And she brought me my first piano.
So do you play?
Yeah. So I have a piano in my studio right now. I'm focusing on that now since I took an early retirement from my career in education. So it's just music, spirit, and travel right now. Just enjoying that. But she's responsible for so much. She introduced me, gave me my first book on metaphysics, and which I was like, what does this mean? The I am. What is I am? And
now, how old were you when she introduced you to metaphysics?
So I was around 15 years old.
Beautiful.
And
so I take it that your family, did you not go to church, or was it just kind of like God is and let's keep it pushing?
Right. Yeah. Well, at that point, I wasn't church going. My father, it's funny. He and my mother were very religious. My mother, she's Mexican, from Mexico. My father actually went to Mexico and to study art and language. And I met my mother's cousin. It's a funny story. He met her cousin, was dating her cousin, and was living in, they had a room for rent in a bakery. They owned a bakery shop in Guadalajara, Mexico. And my father was renting a room, and he was in his early 20s, and he's, very gregarious. He's a Gemini, and he's just having a good time. And so he was dating my mother's cousin, and she, there was a big party, and everyone was invited, and my father came, and so he's, up on Regina, he's really embracing her, dancing, and didn't know that she had a Mexican boyfriend. So she had a black boyfriend and a Mexican boyfriend. So when he showed up,
she liked the flavor.
Yeah. And my dad had no idea. And so when the other boyfriend came in, so one of her girls said, Regina, Jose's here too. My God, she's like, okay. And so the Jose too late, he already spotted my father, probably
Right. Touching
it, touching and everything. And he says, who's this guy? So he said, I'm gonna go get my gun. I'm gonna go get my gun out of my car.
Ooh.
And so the friend said, hey, Jose, he's really mad. He said he's gonna go get his gun, and you need to do something. So she looked at my father who was there. She said, he called him Eduardo, and his name was Ellsworth. Eduardo, let me introduce you to my cousin Sheila. And my mother, she's just, Maria Teresa standing in the corner, just, not dancing, just shy.
Yeah.
People 9 kids later, So she was
a lot of passion. A lot of passion.
Yeah. And so, but anyway, so Dad, he was a singer, a piano player, actor. I didn't know any of that because he was just working. I just,
with 9 kids,
he was just working.
You got a lot to do. That's good. So, Micheal, getting into metaphysics.
Yeah.
Tell me, as a young man, because I'm sure a lot of your friends, like, this is crazy. When did you start to feel a little connected to it?
Father began going to Founders Church of Religious Science in Los Angeles, and we didn't know. I didn't know he, was going. And one day he corralled me and my 2 sisters and my brother, and said, "You're going to church with me. Put on your church clothes." Okay, it's like
everybody got church clothes.
Yeah, it's summer, and all I had was a turtleneck, and it was hot. I put on my turtleneck and everything anyway. And so we went to Founders. I said, there's no room in the main lobby. You have to go and sit in the balcony. And so the balcony was full.
Wow.
And so there were sporadic seats. So my sisters went over here, my brother here, and I sat right at the lip of the balcony. Then the curtain opened, and there was this choir back there of about 130 voice choir.
Oh.
And so they began to sing, and I just was like, my jaw dropped. And I was just mesmerized by that, just the whole, and everybody, and this is where they had a Caucasian gentleman, I remember, and I think he was just a dramatic tenor. And this guy he was opera trained, classically trained, and he just sang in the choir. It felt like it's like, I've never heard anything like this. And anyway, I share this story because I went to Founders and became a soloist at Founders.
Okay.
And I told them the story about me sitting in the balcony and seeing this and experienced this. And I was a soloist there for about 10 years.
Really?
With the choir at Founders. And due to that experience, and it was the most amazing thing musically for me. The director, who was named Paul Smith, he was a graduate of Juilliard in New York, and he's Italian and he's Sicilian, and so I love Italians. I just love the music, the food, the life, it just the exuberance they have for life. And Paul was Sicilian, so Sicilians, you always that's a mafioso kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he was like maybe 5'4", 6" or something like that. But he was so cool, and he had music in his body, so he taught me how to feel music within my body, not just see it in my eyes and with my voice, but feel it in my body. And he would just give me exercises to do, and he taught me how to conduct. So I know how to conduct.
Oh, how beautiful!
Yeah, he said, you got to conduct, Mike. You got to know where the conductor's doing. You got to know where the downbeat is. And I was like, I don't, And so I started conducting and everything. So he was very instrumental for me in the church. And then William H.D. Hornaday was a minister who was like the top guy at the time. He was Ernest Holmes had he was Ernest Holmes' right-hand man. Okay. Ernest had about 6 guys around him. Frank Richley was one. Okay. William H.D. Hornaday, and then a gentleman in New York. So what happened when Ernest died, there was a schism occurred, a division, and everybody went separate ways. And so everybody started doing their own thing in their own way. Like the disciples of kind of Jesus, they all kind of, went their separate ways and to teach the gospel. And so I was an honor to hear William H.D. Hornaday every Sunday since I was like, I got in the choir, maybe my early 20s.
Okay.
And stayed till I was like 29 or so.
Oh my!
And
you were very committed for a long time.
I loved it. I was on the payroll.
Oh.
So yeah, it was a nice little gig, and we would get other stuff would come from that.
Of course,
other
yeah.
opportunities to sing and make money, and everybody who was in there were affiliated. Geraldine West, who had performed on Broadway, she had done. Sang in the original production of Porgy and Bess.
Oh my goodness!
And she was in her 70s when I met her, and was in a choir. Ken Remo was a big star, soloist with Long Beach Opera, and then everybody, the soloists were just incredible. And so I had opportunity to study. Some were excellent musicians, others were just great vocal artists or acting, and we did every Easter, Christmas, and Thanksgiving we did a production.
Oh, how wonderful!
Full production. Now, Founder seats over, I think, about 1,250 people.
I've only been in there once. I've only been in the Founders once.
It was packed. Both services, usually second, last service, packed. It was packed almost so you never sang to an empty seat in that place. And it was a professional theater, so we had professional lighting. We had then when we did shows, they brought in a crew of makeup artists for you, costume.
Oh my. Yeah,
so I was exposed to I got exposed to all that pretty early on, and I was very fortunate to be a part of that and to see that.
This sounds like the Agape of today.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I came from Agape, and seeing thousands of people. 3 services, amazing. I never had the experience of Founders, but I'm told I did go there once. I saw the museum.
Okay,
the
downstairs.
Museum.
Yeah,
it was really awesome. I didn't know that. Yeah. That's so amazing. So you find yourself now at this space. You were an educator?
Yes,
higher
education. So my career was in higher education. So I worked at, started at UCLA, USC, Cal State Northridge, Pepperdine, and I ended up at Cal State Dominguez.
Oh, you got all the Calis in there.
Yeah, so I got all the California schools. So yeah,
all
I know.
The Calis is rolling.
So I got in a career so I could on the downtime I could travel, I tour.
Okay.
So that I got in a career that wasn't too pressure, but allowed me to always perform.
I love it.
And so, our high season as a recruiter, I was a recruiter, school relations person, motivational speaker that encouraged kids to go to college and things like that. So that was kind of, and financial aid were my 2 expertise.
Nice.
And so those were nice tools to have in my bag. And so, from maybe late August to December 1 was our peak season. Okay. And then after that, so I would always go on tour like anywhere from January to April or so. I would, this group I was with, we would tour, and I always saved at least 4 weeks vacation.
How nice
So
is
I always
that?
had like 4 weeks vacation on the books, and I said, I'm going. One time we did a tour of Spain for 6 weeks, and it was in September, and I said, he said, well, Michael, we'll let you go because, you've been here so long, but we can't pay you. You're going to have to just do it on your own.
Right.
And so I said, okay, I'm going to make more money on the tour than, just
exactly.
being at work. And then I
peace out, deuces.
And so I went to Spain for 6 weeks and went all through Spain.
Did you love Spain?
I love Spain.
What's your favorite thing about Spain?
Oh my gosh.
Is it the food? Is it the weather? Is it the people? Is it a combination of all that?
Certainly, it's a combination. I mean, the passion, I think, for me is I love passionate people who their passion is in a loving manner. They're passionate.
That's well said.
Yeah, they're passionate, but it comes out in a loving way.
Yes.
It's not. I'm passionate about
aggressive.
I'm passive about my views on war. We don't get into that. It's there's a passion that they have for life, for living, like Jews say, l'chaim, to life.
Right,
Same with the Italians, but Spain, we went to Spain a couple of years ago. Dana, I said, Dana, we're going to Europe. We got to go to Barcelona.
That's why I want to go to Barcelona.
Barcelona, okay, and so
I hear it's so beautiful.
Oh my gosh! And so we went, and I took my youngest daughter, who was engaged, and we flew them out to join us. So we had an Airbnb apartment, 2-bedroom, and they came out for about 4 days. They're married now, happily married, and we were in Barcelona, and Mike, it's just incredible. I mean, it's I really have to think, where do I want to live? I have another place to go. So anyway, Barcelona, Spain was incredible. The food, amazing. The wine. This is
the wine.
You got to drink wine when you travel, because that keeps your digestive system together.
And that's a reason.
It is. It's true. That's true.
Just because it's just great, especially good wine.
Yeah, and every town had their own wine. So you made it a point. So, and I'm touring with other singers.
Right.
And so we had our little group, and we would go out to dinner after the performance.
Nice,
or whatever.
Of course.
And we'd order, what's your special wine here?
Yes.
And there's one place I remember, and the guy said, "Oh yeah, we came out. We had one bottle. The wine was so good. We felt so good afterwards. It was like we've never experienced anything like
really?
that. The food was awesome,
like a bit of heaven."
And and I'm not really a drinker. I don't maybe I'll drink some wine now, just red wine for health. But I'm not into alcohol very much at all.
Right.
But when you travel, this is the key. Either olive oil, make sure you get a lot of eat olive oil, have olive oil, and drink red wine. So that will, because you don't know how your body's going to respond to the spices or to the whatever. So
I've never done that. I mean, well, I have drank the red wine.
I think you have a little red wine.
I've drank the red wine. Yes, I've indulged in the red wine. I love traveling and I love touring. What do you enjoy most about touring?
About what?
Touring, when you're on tour.
Oh,
what
when
do
I'm
you
on
enjoy
tour.
most about that?
I think the thing I like most is when you are in a collective, you're touring collectively, and then everything starts to click. So when the harmonies are right, all the choreography is right.
Yes.
And we've after about a week or so, everybody gets in shape.
Yeah.
So you're moving, you're dancing, you're performing, and everybody's good, and the energy's up. And then just some of the pieces that you may sing as a vocalizer. That's why I love vocal music so much. Is that when you are involved, you're in the core of a vocal expression. It gets inside you.
Yes.
It gets inside you, and so you're like not only hearing it, but you're feeling it. You're experiencing. Your body is just, and so there are moments like that are just, and we look at each other and you like, yeah, we all got it. We all got it. It's like it's one of those, and we don't have to say anything. It's like, yeah, and so I think that's it. And then on the back end, you have to be tolerant of people's personalities. You have to learn to be tolerant and
learn to work with people.
Learn to work with folks. And that came in handy in my job too, working with people who are we would call a diva personality. We can't work with so and so. They're so difficult. And I said, well, I'll talk to them. I'm like, I know how to. I've been around artists all my life. So,
I can talk to anybody.
I will talk to them, and see what's going on. And so that really helped my career, in higher education. There's a lot of politics always, and difficult personalities, and people they refuse to. I don't want to deal with that person. And I said, let me talk to him. Let me give him a call.
Well, you have such a mild manner about you.
Oh,
there's an ease in just the tone of your voice that I would imagine that would instantly take people off guard, at least to be open to hear
Yeah.
what you have to say.
Right.
That's a really
And so that's
a
what
beautiful gift.
Yeah,
to
that's
have.
what I'm using now for, my shows, and I'm doing inspirational speaking now. So I'm trying to
Nice.
develop that similar to what you're doing, and the music, and to use everything, all my gifts. And I just come to a point in my life where I realize, you use what you have to make a difference in the world. Use what you have to make an imprint, make your imprint on the world.
And I want to say thank you for all that you do, for the communities that you reach out to, and for standing in this space to be a voice, to be an example of living in consciousness. And that's what you do.
Thank you, Gina, for your show and what you do. And this is great. This has been fun.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. So let's close out with our song. All right.
People get ready.
And
There's a train a-coming. No baggage. You don't need no baggage. You just get on board. All we need is faith to hear the diesel humming. You don't need no ticket. You just thank the Lord. You just thank the Lord. You just thank the Lord.
That is your song of the week. Get on board your train. Recognize the magnificent that you are, and know that this community needs whatever it is you have to give. Remember, we are one. We hold a vision. We are creating our here and now. Just you and me. Just you and me. And just you and me. I'll see you next week on Pass the Mic. And remember, I'm on PayPal now. Don't forget to subscribe, and leave your comments below. If you are not signed into your YouTube account, you can't leave a comment. It's not in my control. That's Google. Sign into your YouTube, subscribe, leave a thumbs up or thumbs down. Get your feedback and a comment. And if this show you find it inspirational, you find a space of peace and love, then go to my PayPal and become a part of expanding this community. Thank you so much. Michael, thank you so much. And we'll see you.